Look at a typical suburban street on a quiet afternoon. Manicured lawns, empty driveways, profound stillness. Statistically, this is a location where violent crimes are unexpected. The catalyst for this case began with a single phone call. A neighbor contacted local authorities to report a strange, persistent odor drifting across the property line. Dispatchers process thousands of calls a week. Because this specific report involved no weapons, no screaming, and no immediate threat to life, the system routed it as a low-priority welfare check. Human brains utilize normalcy bias to navigate the world. When a scan of an environment reveals no physical damage, no broken glass, no overturned furniture, the brain automatically signals safety. Our survival instincts are calibrated to react to loud, obvious chaos. Our safety systems often overlook quiet, sensory anomalies that don't fit an expected visual picture. Two officers pulled up to the address. Based on the dispatch notes, they anticipated a standard 5-minute resolution before clearing the scene. From the sidewalk, the property matched their expectations. The yard was well kept, the windows were intact, and there were no signs of forced entry. They knocked on the front door. Nothing. They knocked again. Still nothing. The absolute lack of response from such a well-maintained home created a vacuum of expected behavior. Standing on the porch, they finally registered the complaint. A faint odor hung in the air, a sensory contradiction to the pristine state of the property. That mismatch triggered a shift in protocol. The officers backed off the porch, radioed dispatch, and requested formal permission to enter the residence. A manufactured exterior relies entirely on passive observation. The illusion holds up from the sidewalk, but it shatters the moment an observer begins an active investigation. Crossing the threshold, the officers moved out of the open afternoon air and into the enclosed atmosphere of the home. The air inside felt distinctly heavy. The front living spaces were immaculate. The furniture was perfectly aligned, the surfaces were dusted, and the floors were completely clear. There was no physical evidence of a struggle. Yet that visual perfection clashed with the acoustics. The house lacked the hum of a refrigerator, the ticking of a clock, or any of the sounds of a lived-in space. It was unnervingly silent. Forensically, this is known as a staged environment. Looking at this top-down floor plan, you can see how a perpetrator deliberately manipulates a physical location, using the front rooms as a designated clean buffer zone. If a neighbor or a delivery driver peered through the front windows, their line of sight only intersected with these organized spaces. The layout was engineered to pass a casual visual sweep. The extreme neatness of the house functioned as the primary evidence of a carefully constructed camouflage. Leaving the staged front rooms behind, the officers moved deeper into the architecture, walking slowly down the central artery of the hallway. At the very end of that corridor, a single bedroom door stood out. It was unlocked and resting just a few inches ajar. With every step down the hall, the faint odor detected outside became an unavoidable physical barrier. One of the officers reached out and pushed the door open, bridging the final architectural gap between the staged lie and the hidden truth. What they found within those walls revealed a calculated event, hidden within the most mundane of suburban rooms. The threshold of that specific door marked the exact boundary. On one side, the illusion of a safe home. On the other, the reality of a crime scene. As backup units arrived, the yellow police tape cutting across the front yard became the neighborhood's new focal point. Investigators began to reconstruct the timeline, looking backward at the days immediately preceding the 911 call. Neighbors had actually noticed several anomalies. They recalled altered daily routines, blinds drawn during the day, and long stretches of silence from a normally active property. These red flags were dismissed because they didn't match cinematic expectations of a crisis. Without sirens or shouting, the community assumed the status quo was intact. The perpetrator bought time to stage the scene by relying on the neighbors' innate desire to believe everything was normal. The officers nearly cleared this call because the property's physical state met every visual standard of a safe home. When a situation feels wrong, when the silence is too heavy, or a smell doesn't belong, trust that instinct over a perfectly crafted facade. In our next case file, we will examine a deeper example of a concealed threat, where the warning signs were hidden in plain sight. True horror rarely announces itself by breaking into a normal life. Usually, it quietly disguises itself as one.